All right, a lot going on with the indictment of President Trump. We just had a great conversation with Representative Andy Biggs on the political side of that discussion, but there's also the legal side of this whole thing. The indictment of former President Donald Trump at the bidding of a George Soros-backed soft-on-crime district attorney involves a 7-year-old alleged campaign finance violation. And many legal experts say that this charge reveals a clear weaponization of the prosecutor's office simply to target a political opponent. And of course, with the 2024 presidential race already underway, the ramifications of this indictment are enormous. Well, joining me now to help unpack this is Morse. He's the dean of the Liberty University School of Law. He previously served as the ambassador at large for global criminal justice. Dean Tan, welcome to Washington Watch. We appreciate you joining us this evening.
Good to be on with you.
Well, thank you so much. All right, let's just jump into this. The indictment is under seal until next week. Okay, so I fully understand that our conversation, at least to some degree, involves some speculation. All right, I get that. But can you help us, our viewers, our listeners, to better understand the charges and where do we go from here?
Well, so it is anticipated that it will be connected to money paid to Stormy Daniels and whether the reimbursement of the attorney and the way it was logged in the records was a falsification of those business records. And this is potentially falsifying business records in the first degree. And there has to be, in order to be a felony, it has to be done to commit or conceal another crime. And there is the possibility that the prosecutor will raise that other offense as a campaign finance violation, potentially under New York law. It's interesting to note that the Department of Justice and the Federal Election Commission both declined to prosecute the case, and that federal probe ended in 2019.
Yeah, I think that's extremely interesting. So you kind of wonder where this is going. Just a question along those lines. District Attorney Bragg is notoriously soft on crime. And again, this is just an opinion. Do you think it's fair to say, or at least the argument that is out there, that we would never be seeing this prosecution taking place if it didn't involve someone named Donald Trump?
Well, I think we've seen all the opposition that has been arrayed and all the attacks that have been levied against Donald Trump. Maybe to an extent unprecedented in U.S. history. And so this seems to go along with that ongoing theme.
Yeah, and it's very disturbing. And not just to me, I hear it in your voice as well. And that brings up all these questions of the legal ramifications of all of this. Do you see any way in which now or potentially the former president is going to be deprived of equal protection under the law? Is that already kind of happening, do you think?
Well, there are real concerns about whether this is a politicized prosecution. And the timing seems very interesting. It could have been brought previously. And as we are entering into the presidential campaign season, the timing seems rather curious. Whether this will end up increasing support for Donald Trump is yet to be seen, but there are some commentators who are of the view that that is a distinct possibility. And so it may backfire politically. It may be dismissed quickly legally if it's found to have violated the statute of limitations. For a Class E felony, that would be 5 years. For a misdemeanor, that would be 2 years. Depending on...
And this is what, we're talking, 7 years or something, isn't it? It's beyond the statute of limitations.
Yes, in terms of what date we're at. If we go from the 2017 date, in terms of when the reimbursement payments were made. The 5-year statute of limitations for a Class E felony has elapsed, certainly has for a misdemeanor where it's only a 2-year statute of limitations. There is an argument that it should actually be a later date when the bookkeeping activity took place. There may be a motion to dismiss on this basis, and we'll see how that plays out. But it is possible that it could be rather short-lived.
Okay, Dean Tan, let me, and I hit on this a little bit with our former guest, Representative Biggs. This whole movement towards literally weaponizing our government and the two-tiered system of judgment, of justice that is portraying, how do you see this? Is it as real of a concern as many of us feel?
Well, there is that ideal of equal justice under law inscribed on our Supreme Court building. And when there are politicized attacks against one's political enemies, that certainly doesn't count as equal justice under law. And whether it is a weaponization of the IRS or in intelligence agencies or prosecutorial means, these are all, if they are based on a politicized attack against one's political enemies rather than a fair and just rule of law approach, then it is something that we should be alarmed and concerned about, and it really strikes against the just rule of law.
It really does. I frankly see it chipping away at the confidence of the American people in the rule of law and the direction we're going as a country in that regard. Dean Tan, I want to thank you so much for the incredible work you do at the Liberty University School of Law, and thank you for joining us this evening on Washington Watch. We appreciate it a great deal.
I'm glad to join you. Thanks for inviting me.